Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Sysadmin podcast. Welcome, folks, to tonight's episode of the Sysadmin podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and I'm joined by one of our usual co-hosts, Jason, and a good friend, John. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
By the way, the whole intro was background music of Jason hammering on his keyboard. Just saying. He's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. You can edit it out later, right? That's what you're thinking. That's what you're saying in the back of your head. That's a Nate problem, not a Jason problem.
It's more like, oops, for the first time I forgot
to usually you mute. Usually you mute. Anyway. All right, folks. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, and I know this is going to sound, you guys know I work for Red Hat. John also works for Red Hat. We're going to talk about a Red Hat thing. But it's because I've been doing some tinkering with it, and I think it's actually really helpful for folks who may be in an operations role. It's not just because I work at Red Hat. I think it's actually useful. It's like a really cool tool. So we're going to be talking about not just Insights, but specifically the Insights Vulnerability Service. Is that the official name, John? I keep calling it that. That's it, right?
Red Hat Insights is the name, and then Insights has got a bunch of services. So it's one of the many services. So Red Hat's weird on naming. We don't really name down to that level, so anything like that, perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. So what this tool does is, well, I don't know, maybe we'll step back. John, you want to give yourself an introduction quick, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I am Senior Principal Technical Marketing Manager in our Hybrid Cloud Experience Business Unit.
That's a mouthful.
That's a lot of words. I work with Red Hat Insights, and I do a lot of presentations, a lot of talks like this one, and essentially just act as a subject matter expert for the Insights product. Looking back, I've been here at Red Hat for about 5 years. I'm based near our Raleigh, North Carolina headquarters. Prior to that, I spent a decade at NetApp, also as a technical marketing person. But before that, I am what I like to call a recovering sysadmin. I worked for a small North Carolina nonprofit for about 5 years. And at that nonprofit, we had a whole lot of technology and not a whole lot of people. So I was a Linux admin, a Windows admin, a SAN admin, a Tivoli admin, a Domino admin, email encryption, Avaya, physical hardware. I racked and stacked all the things and kept track of how many PDUs, and probably a few I'm forgetting. So
I've been there.
Many hats.
I think a lot of, I would hope anyway, maybe we just have a shared terrible experience, but I would hope that a lot of folks listening to this show have probably been in a similar situation. I worked at a little web host early on in my career where I was responsible for like anything that had a power cord.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I've had people ask me in the past, like, how did I get involved with technical marketing? Because it's not something you hear about in career day. Like, it's really not a super common job. I think Nate and I had this discussion before he became a technical marketing person. And I'm like, look, I was looking for a new job because as Jason said, my hair was on fire. I was running around all the time. Like, there just wasn't enough time to do anything strategic. It was all about putting out the fire and trying to keep the business running. That's like really all we had time for.
Yeah.
And I saw this advertisement for a job at NetApp at the time, and it was looking for somebody with Domino experience and Tivoli experience and DB2 experience and AS400 experience. And
AS400.
who else has all of these things that I happen to do? So I applied for this job and eventually I didn't even know what a technical marketing person was. And they're like, we need you to explain how all this stuff works and should work to people. I'm like, I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say it's a shame that the word marketing is in our titles because it's a part of what we do, but it's such like we're more like in support of marketing, right? Is kind of the best way I can kind of describe it, right? So
I was on a train in Brno with one of our engineers. Brno's in the Czech Republic. It's one of our big offices for Red Hat. And we were riding from whatever area we were in back to the city center. And this engineer and I were talking back and forth. And we started getting into some sort of discussion on TDP, UDP. And he looks at me, wait, what?
Don't you work in marketing?
You're in marketing. Why do you know things?
Right.
And I'm like, no. Technical marketing. Like, it's completely different. Like,
right.
Yes, I know things and I do things and use things. And yeah, I'm not just going to tell you that we do 1 million gigaflops, you know?
Right.
I'm technical and my hair is not greasy.
Right. Wait. If there's technical marketing managers at Oracle, their hair is probably still greasy.
Well, the Oracle's a special case.
Yeah. I don't even know if they have such a role. Anyway,
it's just
all
as
right.
they walk through the door, there's a tub of grease.
Yeah, right. They give them a white shirt and a tie that doesn't fit right, and they grease their hair back, slick their hair back. Anyway, all right. So why is John here tonight? So like I mentioned, we're going to talk about this Insights vulnerability service, but let's take a step back for just a moment and give just like a high level overview. What the heck is Red Hat Insights, and why is there a vulnerability service to begin with?
Sadly, it's one of the best kept secrets that we have at Red Hat, and much to my dismay.
We're trying to make it not so much of a secret.
Trying to make it not so much. So Insights has been around for about 6 years. It's actually been a product longer than I've been at Red Hat. For the last 4 years or so, it's been included with Red Hat subscriptions for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And about 3 years ago, we added it into OpenShift and Ansible automation platform as well. So to say that in different words, Insights is not something you buy. It's something that you probably already have if you have some kind of a Red Hat subscription. This is what we like to call our value of subscription. We include this in the box is some really cool technology that its goal is to make your life easier. So to answer the question more directly, Insights is a hosted software as a service offering that we have that has a number of capabilities for the platforms that it supports, which again are RHEL, OpenShift, and Ansible automation platform. One of the big services we have is this vulnerability service, but really I like to think of Insights as the codification of Red Hat support.
Yes.
We hear some customers that are basically like, why do we pay for Red Hat? We really don't have that many support cases. Like, we just don't call your support that often. But you probably use a lot of the knowledge bases. Maybe you've got a technical account manager, or you're leveraging somebody else that is helping you not have to call a lot. And what Insights does is basically take our entire interoperability matrix and turn that into you're using this version of hardware with this version of RHEL, and you have this application running on top of it with these package versions, and we can look at all that and go, ooh, you've got a mismatch right there, and you could have a lot better performance if you upgraded that package.
Yeah, so
we can tell you that like that.
For folks who don't know, when you contact Red Hat support and they help you with your issue, right? Usually they'll send you back an article that says, oh, here's how to fix your issue, right? That's not just because we have a huge database of things that can possibly go wrong with RHEL, but it's because there's a concerted effort. If you contact Red Hat support and the person you're working with cannot find an article that outlines your problem, they are expected to write one, right? Now, Insights takes that a step further, and if the problem that they're telling you how to fix can be fixed in an automated fashion, which, come on, it's Linux. How many things can't be fixed in an automated fashion, right? They can also write an Insights rule that will fix the problem and help identify the problem. So if you've got a RHEL system that's talking to Insights, then if all those pieces are written properly, it can identify problems, maybe even before they're actually problems, and tell you about them and say, here's how to fix them. Not just, here's a KB on how to fix it, but here's like a button you can push that will fix it. Right? So
it can even generate a playbook for you and run that playbook on your behalf if you have all the right permissions. So
right.
yeah, it can go from the point of we've identified an issue. We used to call it find it, fix it. Like we found a thing. Here's how you fix the thing. And if you want us to fix the thing for you, go click this button.
Right.
And we really do try to make it that simple. I mean, there's always stuff you got to set up and configure. But there's nothing, really here to install for the most part if you're using a relatively new version of RHEL. Like
so there is
in 8.9 it's pre-installed. If you're on 7, you may need to install the Insights client package.
Now so there is technically an agent that's running, although it's a pretty lightweight agent. And as far as the data that it sends, we'll have a link in the notes here about basically an article we've written about what that data is.
Yeah. And it's not actually running all the time. It's a system D process that runs once a day.
Right. And it's sort of like sending an SOS report.
Some of them are a little bit bigger if you're using other services. Like we're not going to delve into it today, but we have a compliance service that does regulatory compliance. So it actually will evaluate for something like PCI or HIPAA, and then that generates an XML file that we then send up to Insights to present inside the Insights UI. Those are, of course, bigger because we're taking an output from another program and then sending it on. But for the most part, what we look at is we want to know what version of RHEL do you got? How much memory, how much CPU, what packages are installed, what's running? Like, I mean, the information that we're looking at is essentially the minimum we need to do an if this then that type of evaluation, which is how I like to consider Insights, especially the advisor service.
Right. So advisor is the thing that does what we were just describing, right?
Yep.
Well, what I wanted to talk about tonight was this vulnerability service, and basically, if you imagine that feature set, right, where it can identify problems for you and tell you how to fix them. This is that, except for CVEs, right? So if there's if Insights detects that you have a vulnerable package installed, it can tell you about it and tell you what packages you need to update to mitigate or fix the problem, right? So
I was talking to a customer last week, and they're like, my biggest headache around vulnerabilities is I need, like, every once in a while the security team will come to me and say, CVE ABC123, how many systems are vulnerable to this? And I need a report, and I need that tomorrow. And he goes, I have to log into each system individually and try to figure this out, or I have to use a third-party service that's not really meant for RHEL, so it gives me all sorts of weird false positives. He's like, Is that a thing you can do? And I'm like, that is exactly the thing that we do.
I mean, I guess theoretically you could leverage like satellite or something if you're a full RHEL shop and have satellite, right? So that's another way you could theoretically get it done. But
and Insights takes it to another level, which is really great because like you can do like the name vulnerabilities. You could look for ret bleed or anything, just by the name of the CVE. If you don't know the number, you can go, let me go look this up, and it will spit you a list out and be like, okay, you have 16 systems that are impacted by this vulnerability, and here they are. Here's a version of RHEL. You just export that out to a CSV or a JSON and send it along. And matter of seconds, you can send a report out to somebody that says, here you go.
Yeah, so I guess sorry, go ahead, Jason.
This is all based on the RPM, YUM, DNF, whatever we're calling it these days, database of what's installed on the machine, right?
We use the oval feed as the primary source of where the vulnerabilities are. And then we put some intelligence on top of that based off the configuration of the systems. And I'll talk more about that a little bit.
So, but what I'm saying is if I log into a box and I drop a vulnerable version of, some random library, and it's not installed by RPM, that's not going to get picked up.
If it's not one of ours, then we may not pick it up. Or if you're using, we did have a weird, there's a bug in the other day where we had somebody create a mirror of one of our repositories, but then they named it like Jason's mirror. And so we didn't know what it was because it wasn't like, AppStream mirror. It was Jason mirror. And we're like, well, we don't know what these packages are, so we can't do a proper evaluation. But yeah, generally speaking, we're looking at the repositories that we have for Red Hat and comparing those versions to the oval feed to say, hey, are we vulnerable to this?
Yes, right. No? Okay. Yeah. So it's RPM packages versus like random .sos.
Yep.
Oh yeah, like if you were to go compile something from source or install a custom RPM, I think it would have trouble detecting that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So you mentioned reports, right? So there's that was actually one of the first things that caught my eye when I was looking at the vulnerability service was that not only does it do the cool techie things that like techie people care about, but it can also give you like an executive summary or an actual report of systems impacted by certain CVEs, which I thought was pretty useful. You know, you're dealing with like compliance or something. You need a tactical list of all the things that need to be fixed, but your boss may not care about the tactical list. He may want a pretty pie chart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
this accommodates both of those, which is kind of cool, right?
So our product manager for this service particularly likes to call this deep threat intelligence. The not just the vulnerability service, but the combination of all the services that we have that we consider part of our security umbrella. So we've got not only vulnerability compliance, which is regulatory compliance, malware detection, and a policy service that lets you do kind of your own custom policies. So the big part of this, especially for vulnerabilities, is it is that system-wide view. You have all the systems registered to Insights, and from one place you can really see all of these CVEs. Then you can delve down into the details about the CVEs. So we have labels within Insights, and we put some labels on there that's based off of information that we know. So we've got the oval feed I mentioned earlier, which we use as the base of here's the list of all the vulnerabilities. That's great. Like everybody has access to that, like not a major deal. But then on top of that, we have our own internal group, and it's the acronym is PSERP, and I looked it up earlier because I couldn't remember what it was. The Product Security Information. I always forget what it means. Yeah, Product Security Incident Response Plan is the name of the group. But this is basically they say how do these vulnerabilities really affect REL systems, like REL systems only, especially when we get those big name ones on TV. It's like we need a little bit more information to help people know how to fix these, how to mitigate them. And maybe it's not just update the package. Maybe it's there's a pseudo vulnerability out there that leverages pseudo edit. So rather than updating the package, which you may not be able to do for a while if you're using a production system that's super active, you may just not be able to go update a package. It says, oh, well, another thing that we can do is we can leverage system tap and we can block pseudo edit. We can keep people from executing against this vulnerability. So it's a form of mitigation that's not the final fix. It's just keeps you up and running, and that doesn't require you to restart any services or reboot any systems. So something like that incident response plan will go deeper, and that creates what we call a security rule. So we have a flag inside of Insights that's a security rule. And then we have another flag that's a known exploit that says, does this particular vulnerability have a known exploit associated with it? Does not mean that you have been exploited. It just means that this is something that you probably want to deal with at a higher priority because it has that known exploit associated. So with those flags built in, and then things that are already provided by the oval feed, like the CVS score, which is the common vulnerability scoring system that rates the vulnerabilities between 0 and 10. You can say, okay, like really give me CVEs that are 6.0 to 10.0, so they're super severe. Give me vulnerabilities that have a known exploit associated with them, and give me vulnerabilities that have a security rule. Now give me a report of all those things. And these are the ones that I need to focus on fixing first because they are the most impactful to my environment. If I go look at my system right now, I probably have in my system is purposely not up to date because I demo things. I've got a lot of old RHEL systems, so I probably have 800 plus CVEs in my environment across 100 systems. That's a lot. How do I deal with that? How do I go out here and address it? And the way you address it is by making intelligent decisions and, eating that elephant one bite at a time.
Right. Now, obviously, you could address it by looking up what needs to be updated and push out patches, or you could address it using the automation that's built into Insights, right? Which, of course, is, I think, it's pretty much Ansible, right? It gives you an Ansible playbook, right?
Yeah,
that
so
you
what
can
we've
then
got
execute.
within them is, the ability to create Ansible playbooks. Most of, I think pretty much all vulnerabilities have something some sort of playbook built in already to deal with them. If you go into other services like the regulatory compliance service, there may be things where we don't have playbooks built in, because that may be like your disk needs to be laid out in this specified manner. We're not going to create a playbook.
I can just
data.
imagine
No.
Red Hat made me repartition my drive. Yeah, that
no,
probably wouldn't go over well.
Not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. We're just going to highlight that it's not up to spec in that case.
Yeah.
But for something like the vulnerability service, I'm like 99.8% sure that every vulnerability that has an errata has got a playbook with it.
So, Jason, what are you thinking at this point? Because you're like the only probably skeptical one present
Jason,
at the
have you ever
moment.
seen this out of curiosity? I don't know.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Insights. Is this conversation entirely new to you? Just curious. Level set with me. What's your
Insights is yeah.
Okay.
I'm not. I think I've heard about it. Grumbled about before, but I've never really delved into it. It sounds neat. I mean, I think the capabilities are more on the auto fix it. Help I have a problem. The security stuff is useful. Typically, I mean, it's great from a quick look at the OS itself, specifically if you're installing things that come out of packages that the OS is aware of. It doesn't sound like it helps at all for third party. I've written software and it's got it uses these libraries here, there, and everywhere that aren't packages I installed. That's just not going to come up in Insights.
If it's something you've written, definitely not. But if it's something that's SAP HANA, SQL Server, Oracle, AWS, Azure, one of these common type platforms, we do have built in a lot, especially in the advisor service. We have a lot of
but it sounds like you have to have installed those using like Yum or DNF.
Yeah, but I mean, so think about, and I know you and I have had these conversations in the days that we work together, right? Usually, you'll have, if you're running something like RHEL, you'll have a standard that says, if we're installing packages, we're going to make sure they come from the OS vendor unless we absolutely can't, right? Obviously, custom code is a different thing, right? But look at all the conversations we had with our web folks when we were at the college about what version of PHP we could run. Like we don't want to install a version of PHP that's not coming from Red Hat because we get support from the one that comes with Red Hat, right? Now, obviously, sometimes you can't avoid that, but this is going to cover a lot, I would think, if you have that kind of a policy in place.
Yeah. Yes. Again, if you're following that type of a line, yeah. In my experience, a lot of it is, we would depend on the OS vendor for OS stuff. If packages were available for something, great. But in a lot of cases, whatever we're building or installing or putting together isn't going to have packages, and it may come from smaller places that and even if it does have packages, take something and it might be a bad example because you may even have it in your Insights, but take something like GitLab. GitLab's package, omnibus package, is everything in 1 RPM, which is great. It's wonderful to install. But when I say it's everything, I'm talking databases, libraries, everything. So you can install this. You don't have to install the Red Hat supported versions of databases and everything else. It's all in that omnibus package. So that's something that Insights, based on how I'm understanding that it works now, Insights isn't going to pick that up unless GitLab itself is one of the packages that you guys are tracking. But there's dozens of other examples. But like I said, it's great for knowing at the OS level what you have out there, what's what potential CVEs there are. It's just one step in the chain of pieces that you're going to need to fully scan. So when somebody comes to you with a specific CVE, you may be able to run it through Insights and say, yeah, it doesn't look like any of our machines specifically are compromised because of that, but we have other software out there. So that's when you get into things like SBOMs and scanning packages and all sorts of other good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a great it's a great step. It's just not a complete solution.
Yeah, my
Not that
counter.
anything really is. But...
Yeah, right. My counterpoint there would be if you've installed a package like that Omnibus Pocket package that you just recommend or that you just mentioned. That's sort of on the admins to make sure that you're tracking that outside of your vendor, right? Because no vendor, even if that was on any other distribution or even on like a Windows machine or whatever, is going to be tracking that for you, right?
Right, but I guess my point is if you're using something like Tenable's Nessus products or any of the other scanners that are out there that are going to do a full system scan, it doesn't matter what package manager you're using, it doesn't matter who the vendor is, it's looking at every file in every directory across that entire machine. And yeah, it's heavy. It takes a while for them to scan. It's not instant, but you build up your inventory over time and you'll be able to pick that stuff out.
But then they'll
it's here and there. I mean,
there's also the old problem of those third-party scanners don't take into consideration vendors that have backported fixes.
Yep, agreed.
Right, so it's
I fought that. I fought that my entire career. Yeah, I've pushed back on a number of findings. It's like, well, that's great, but your vulnerability scanner says it's vulnerable, but my patch log says that no, it's not. So please go away.
Well, so in a situation like that, though, right, to turn this around, in a situation like that, you then go to your vendor and say, okay, is this patched? And say your vendor's us, say your vendor's somebody else. It's on them to then tell you, yep, we fixed that, or no, we didn't fix that yet.
Yep.
Previously, the way you would do that is by going to the customer portal, looking for the CVE, finding the document that says, no, RHEL is not vulnerable, and then you would hand that off to your security and compliance people, right? The Insights Vulnerability Service turns that into a report. You don't have to go hunt for it.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think the other piece of it might, if I'm understanding, might be that Insights comes with your RHEL subscription. Yes, no?
Correct. Yes.
So, you don't have to go buy Tenable, which is not cheap.
Yeah, now...
So
again,
we have
right?
had a number of customers that are using Tenable and Nessus, and like this is absolutely not a replacement for if you have some sort of you've already got that rolled out in your environment, you're doing it across your entire estate. This is RHEL only. But where we have seen a lot of customers use this as an augmentation, where they're like, Nessus is telling me that we've got these vulnerabilities. Hey, RHEL dude, you got to go fix this stuff, and then they go. Let me go check my Insights report. Nope. This one's legit. We've got a newer feature too that's really interesting. We released it last month, or maybe very into December. That's the affected but not vulnerable flag. This is a new thing that we've thrown in, where we essentially say that because RHEL has a lot of security features that are baked into it. We've got we've got SE Linux. We've got a lot of other capabilities here. We have this flag called affected not vulnerable, which means yes, technically that package is a package that is affected, but your system in its current configuration is not actually vulnerable. So should you fix this? Yes. Is it a high priority? No. Now, if something changes, your configuration changes, maybe you need to go back and fix this. It's definitely something you want to take care of. But this is more, that port is not a listening port, or this requires certain permissions that, due to your SE Linux configuration, that person is never going to have. So that's something, again, that Insights looks at the configuration of the system and goes, this one is one we've done a little bit more introspection on, and we can give you additional advice. RetBleed is one in particular where that one came up on, where we've got a lot of systems that are not.
That's super useful. Yeah, that's super useful. Just from the, it sounds dangerous, but if you're specifically marking it as not vulnerable because of things like SE Linux and that port's not open or something like that, then I can see where that's that's useful. I've seen similar things where the report is like, yeah, technically we have that in our product, so it's technically a finding, but we're not vulnerable because we don't use that function, which is like, okay, that's cool, but still on my system.
Exactly.
And if some other thing
Yeah.
uses that library, we're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I guess to John's point, right? This isn't a don't worry about this. It's a
Right.
you probably don't have to patch this the moment you've heard about it. It's plan a maintenance window, make sure everyone knows about it, right? It's not an emergency maintenance now. It's a planned outage. It's a planned patching cycle, right?
And the other really nice thing that Insights does with this vulnerability service is we have a business risk and a status field, both of those. So you can go in, especially for the status field, you can go in and essentially use that as the life cycle of how you manage your vulnerabilities. And you can say, hey, this is a new CV. I've just detected it. So you can put it in the in review stage. I'm evaluating this, trying to figure out what it is. So if the boss goes in and checks, you can say, oh yeah, he's actually doing something. It's not the default status is not reviewed. So in review means I'm actually looking at it. And then when you're ready to patch it, maybe you're scheduling it for a patch. So you set that to schedule for patch. It's going at the next patch cycle. And then eventually you could do something like, hey, we're just not taking any action. Like this is a package that's built into the satellite and we can't do anything with it because we treat satellite like an appliance. We're just going to accept this risk until we do the next upgrade in satellite. So we can go through this whole life cycle, and eventually when you have no systems affected, it will disappear from your view. The default way that Insights works, it only shows stuff that affects you. It's a flag that's put on by default where it says, only show me systems that are affected, one or more systems that are affected. You can clear that flag and you can actually see all the things. So there's some 13,000 CVEs or something we're looking at that have errata. So it's a pretty easy view to see what's going on in your environment.
So are you saying you could actually have Insights show you everything even if you're not in fact not affected by it? Is that what I just heard?
You can see all CVEs with errata even if they're not actually affected by it.
Okay.
And there is a feature request that is a future feature where you can see all CVEs even if there is no errata.
Huh. Okay.
So those are
I don't know why you'd want to do that, but it seems funny that it's even an option.
And the general idea is I've got CVE 123. I want to see a report that says none of my systems are affected by this CVE.
Well, that makes sense, right?
There are things that you may be affected by that there's no way to fix it currently. And if there's no errata, then you can't really fix it. And so Insights doesn't show you that today, but in the future, we'll be able to say, here's CVE 123. It affects 27 systems, but there's no way to fix this yet other than, maybe running a different version of RHEL.
Right. Because that does happen for systems that are either beyond their support or CVEs that are just that new. Right.
Exactly.
So
it takes a while sometimes to develop the fix for a vulnerability. So it may show up. And
especially if it's not high impact, right? Yeah. If it's not high up there on the scale, it might take a little longer because, priorities and whatnot. So, okay.
But yeah, if you wanted to see if CVE 2023-06-16 affected any of your systems, you can clear that flag, you can type in that CVE number and it will pop up and show you that, 0 systems. And then
that's like the use case where the boss comes to you and says, I read about this in the magazine, or I heard about this on the news. Tell me what's vulnerable. Yep. And you can say, nothing. Look, it's right here.
Yep. Okay. And there's if you go into the tool, there's a nice it's a newer thing. It's a little card set of icons at the top that will tell you, how many CVEs do I have with known exploits? How many do I have with security rules? How many do I have that are of critical severity? And how many are important severity? So it's that quick, almost stoplight type. Here's what's going on in my environment that I need to take care of.
Who determines those severities? Is that the severity of the CVE, or is there a way to downgrade that?
That's the severity of the CVE, but you do have a business risk flag that you can set where you can essentially say, yeah, you guys say it's medium, but to me, this is a critical.
Now,
you can go and essentially override it.
And that'll reflect on reports and whatnot.
Yes.
I know there's cases where the CVE has a level and Red Hat has rescored it because of whatever features we build or whatever in the RPMs that come from Red Hat. Is the score you're referring to our score or the published score?
I believe the default one is the published score that's in the oval feed.
Okay.
If we have a security rule associated with it, it will have a slightly different set of guidance to say that we've undergone this, product security incident response plan process. And while this one's marked as important, we think it's critical because of these reasons, and it will give it a slightly different severity.
Okay.
But it's a portion. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's only a portion of the CVEs go through that process. It's the ones that are really considered impactful, and that could be based either on the criticality set within the CVE itself, or that could be based off of support cases to Red Hat. If we start getting a ton of support cases on a particular CVE, they may go, ooh, when you go fix this thing, you break that thing, so you really need to fix that thing too while you're at it. And they'll put all that information into the security rule.
That's helpful. Yeah, so this, and really that whole the routine that I went through of going to the customer portal and finding the CVE and whatever, I must have done that 1,000 times as a TAM, right? Because customer comes to me and says, hey, what's this? Or I'll proactively say, oh, I just heard about this on the news. They're going to ask me. I better go look. And it's not always easy, right? Because you have to, you look at any CVE that we've published, or not that we've published, but that we have an entry on, and there's like a matrix. There's a table of these versions of RHEL, these versions of OpenShift, these versions of these other things that we, it's all the products and all the different versions. And then you got to go through and go like, okay, RHEL 8, right? And you got to find it and say, is that one affected, right? This takes all that and puts it into like an automatic, you've got a RHEL 8.7 system. It's affected by this. Here it is. You don't have to go do any of that legwork. And that's like, I feel like almost like a broken record. I just said this, but that's the piece that I found really, really helpful, right?
And you mentioned you used to be a TAM. And so if anybody that's watching has got a TAM, one of the cool things that, it wasn't available in your day, Nate, but it came out maybe in November.
In my day, 6 months ago.
Exactly. we now have an access request tool, and it was made for the TAMs with the idea being, I need to see what the customer sees. Because by default, like Red Hat collects data, I can't see any of it. Like Red Hat can't see this data. Like it's collected for the purpose of analysis. Anything I see, like I could see customer X has 100 systems registered to Insights. That's as deep as I can go. Mm-hmm. So we've had requests internally from especially TAM saying, I'm responsible for this customer. I really need to see what information they have in their Insights dashboard because I need to help them fix this stuff. I want to come to them with a proactive plan because that's essentially what you're being paid for.
That's what you're for, yeah.
So we created an access tool that somebody can go in, TAM can go in and basically request access of a customer and say it's account number ABC123. And I need access to these specific capabilities, and I need that access for 6 months. And then that request goes to the customer, and they can either accept it or deny it, and they can see the exact list of roles that are being requested. And maybe they're like, I really don't want you seeing my regulatory compliance, but I'm totally cool with you seeing my vulnerability in my patches. And they can reject or say, hey, submit this again, but I don't want to give you this information.
It's actually a really nice way to go about that. Anyone who's worked in an ops role knows that the people who own the database probably have access to the data, right? So in this case, Red Hat owns the database, right? Mm-hmm. But it shows that we're taking steps to be responsible with that data. It's not just any old Red Hat employee can go in and look at it. I guess theoretically with the right access you could, but
the SRE team is the only one that can, and they have to jump through some major hooks because they essentially have to get into the S3 bucket that hosts everything. So it's logged a lot if you need to go try to access that, and it's not something that we do just for funsies. It's cool. There's a problem we got to fix. This data, it's encrypted before it leaves the machine, while it's in transit, while it's at rest. We do everything we can, even though this data is it's not sensitive data.
But it's still data, right?
And protect it. Absolutely. Yeah. And we haven't talked about it a whole lot, so I just want to highlight There's a page. Nate's got the link. I don't know if you share it during or after the call or what.
It'll be in the notes for the call.
Perfect.
Yeah, or not the call,
for the
in the show notes for the call. Right? I'm talking like we're on a work call because it feels like it. No, it'll be in the show notes for the show.
Way more fun than work. What are you talking about? No. You can generate the data packet that gets sent before you send anything. Like you don't send it, you just generate it and look at it. But what we don't have is a list to say, here's the specific things that I'm asking for. And the reason we don't have a list is it can change over time. Especially for something like vulnerabilities or high important items, we can say we've never collected. A perfect example is a while ago Azure had the oh my god vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
We had never looked for the OMI package. It's not something we ever looked at, not something we'd ever wanted to see if that was running or not.
Because it's a Microsoft thing, and it's not our. Why would we care about it? Yeah.
Why would we care? And they came out with this vulnerability, and we're like,
maybe we should care.
We need to do something about this and let people know, like ASAP. There's a blog about it that I wrote somewhere on it, but essentially in 30 hours, from the point that we were notified to the point we delivered recommendations, it was 30 hours. And we said, what is this problem? What information do we need to inform people on what's happened? And then we created that recommendation and got it out. And we actually created 5 because we created one that was, is the package, the package is not installed. 0 level, you're safe. No
We're
problem.
good. Yeah.
Package is installed, but it's not running. It's not listening. It's not doing anything. So, a little bit more critical. You probably want to take care of this, but
if someone starts this thing up, you're vulnerable. Right.
And then we created is it there and is it running? More critical.
Yeah.
And then is it listening on an internal port? And then is it listening on an external port? So we basically started at the lowest criticality and moved our way up so we could tell people, are you impacted? And this is how important it is that you take care of that. But that's something that we turned around and were able to do very quick because of just the nature of how it works. But that's why there's not a published list of here's all the things that I collect.
Right.
And if there's something you do a collection and you see information that you don't want to send, maybe to you, your IP addresses or your host names are personally identifiable information. That's the most common thing that we get. It's a yes, no flag to hide that. It's obfuscate IP address. Yes, no.
Right.
Obfuscate host name. Yes, no. The impact of that though, is if you hide your host names, when we create a remediation plan, it's going to use a fake host name. So it's going to
that makes sense.
Remediate.
Yeah, you can't really tie it back to what the host name was because you don't have it.
So the way we deal with that is we generate a UUID, and then you have to manually go to the system, find out what the UUID is, then go to the
that makes sense.
and look for that UUID and just search for it. We do give you the capability into the display to give it like an Ansible name or a display name that might be more friendly. So maybe your host name is proprietary. I'm calling this, dir01.sql. mycorp.com, something that matches your standards. But to you, that's Zeus, and you go into the display and you
right
Zeus because every admin loves Roman mythology.
Jason and I had long discussions with some folks at the college about how we should name things based on what services they're running, because it could be a thing that attackers look for, right? Like, oh, look, I wonder where their Oracle server is. Maybe it's the one called Oracle 3.
Yep.
The
Red Hat
discussions about naming.
Yeah.
Red Hat's adding features to their products to allow you to turn your cattle back into pets.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean,
really want to.
One of the biggest pushbacks that I got as a TAM whenever I brought up the word insights was this data collection thing. Oh, what happens to the data? We're a regulated space. We can't send you the data. We can't do that. Well, I feel like the question's been answered 1,000 times, right? Yeah. So there's an article about it. If you're really curious, go read the article. It's going to be in the notes for the show.
we take it, we evaluate it, and we throw it away in 24 hours. Like, we don't hang on to any of it. We will hang on to aggregated data for things like subscriptions. Like that hangs on a little bit longer. We have a service we haven't talked about that's called Drift, and essentially it's a system comparison type of service. where you can say, hey, this thing worked perfectly on Friday and I came in Monday morning and it's all busted. What happened? And
Right.
you can go use this tool and say, it keeps 7 days of history is all it keeps. But you can go in and say, compare today's state to Friday's state and tell me what changed. And it will just spit out, and it's basically a list of packages and versions. And you go, oh, somebody came in and botched an upgrade over weekend, or upgrade this thing that they didn't test.
You can
nobody ever does that.
You can use Drift to compare against your own internal standards too, can't you? Mm-hmm. Can't you like define a template or something that says this is what our system should look like?
Yep. Well, you can create a baseline and say this is what it should look
That's
like.
the word I'm looking
for.
You can
actually create that baseline from an existing system. So if you've got like a gold image or something, you can say this gold image should be my standard, set it up as a baseline, and then you can actually subscribe the systems to the baseline. So if you know web servers look like this, here's my web server baseline, assign all your web servers to it. And then you can get a notification if it drifts off of that. And notifications and insights have also come a long way in the last few months. You can automatically send notifications to Splunk, to ServiceNow, to Slack, to Grafana, all kinds of things. We've got webhooks, and everything is backed by APIs, and there's a full API out there.
Right. So yeah, we could probably go on for quite a while about all of the various things that you can do, not just with Insights, but all the other services that are hosted on the same console that Insights is hosted through. There's things like the image builder service, and there's a bunch of other things, Drift, compliance, the advisor stuff we talked about, vulnerability. There's a bunch of other things, and maybe we'll have John back to talk about some more things. But we were worried we weren't going to be able to fill an hour on this, and we've gone for 50 minutes. So
never worried.
All right.
Was it you? I told somebody recently I could show up and just wax poetic because talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, right.
Somebody else that I made that statement to.
Right. I have just enough exposure to Insights to know that it's actually a really cool tool. But that's essentially why I wanted to bring you on to talk about it, because I'm sure you've got a depth of knowledge that I don't have, right? Even though I've poked at these tools.
I'm probably one of the only people in the company that like regularly uses the whole thing like as a suite. We have a whole lot of people that use individual features and services, but from Ansible to RHEL to OpenShift, like I'm in this, and it's hosted at what we call the hybrid cloud console. There's stuff out there that's not Insights too. If you log into RHEL today, it's pretty much all Insights. But if you go into Ansible, there's a few services, but then there's also the Ansible Analytics. That's part of Ansible Automation Platform that's got some savings calculators, ROI calculators, and things like that. On the OpenShift side, there's the OpenShift Cluster Manager, and even outside of those, there's some middleware stuff. There's Kafka and Sandbox and all sorts of good stuff out there.
Yeah, but I work for RHEL. I don't care about those things.
Exactly.
All right, so this has been a great conversation. I don't know if anybody that's watching live has any questions for John that they want to pipe up, or John, if you had any closing thoughts about Insights or anything that you want to bring up, or Jason, if you had any questions that you didn't have a chance to ask, now's a good time to bring those up.
No, I'm good. I banged around a bit.
Yeah, just reminding people that it's included. Like if you've got a Red Hat subscription, and that includes the developer subscription. If you've got that free developer subscription, yes. If you're using AWS or Azure and you've got a RHEL box, yes, like it's included. It's part of it. Only kind of cloud caveat there is you do have to connect it to a Red Hat account somewhere along the line. So if you're buying straight from AWS, you do need to connect that to a Red Hat account, meaning you might have to set one up.
And it's
still included.
You can do that without subscribing it to a RHEL subscription. So you don't have to, because if you go to a cloud provider and buy RHEL, you're paying your cloud provider for RHEL, and then they're paying Red Hat for RHEL, right? You're not directly Red Hat's customer. However, you can still use Insights by simply using the Insights client, right, to register it instead of Subscription Manager. If you register with Subscription Manager, you're going to have to buy a RHEL sub to go with it, and that's not what you want to do, because then you're just paying for RHEL twice. So that's a bad thing.
And if anybody has a satellite system and they have a mix, so they already got some subs and they've got some cloudy stuff, Simple Content Access, SCA, look that up. Make sure that is turned on first. Yeah, because that will prevent you from consuming a subscription on your satellite and paying for a subscription in the cloud. If you don't have SCA turned on, you could potentially get double billed. We don't want that to happen. So
Right.
simple content access is the way we're going. We definitely don't have time for that one today, but that's
yeah, simple
something else
content
we're
access
doing
is
to
a
make
whole
life
other.
easier. Yeah.
So in the chat, we actually did get a question, and Bad Net Mask asks, "Can you quick talk about the OpenShift insights?"
Yeah. So OpenShift Insights itself, again, it's included, especially for OpenShift 4. It's included. It's ready to go. If you're using OpenShift in the connected experience, which is the default experience, it's already leveraging the Insights operator. You literally do not have to do anything. It's out there, ready to go. I think the exception is Arrow. If you're using the Azure version of OpenShift, then I think you do have to configure something on the operator. But anything else, it's already set up. It's ready to go. We've got 4 primary services for Insights. The advisor service, that's the if this then that kind of thing that I talked about for, that is mostly about best practices, performance, stability. There is also a vulnerability for OpenShift. I'm going to try to summarize this really quickly. We have ACS, which is a Kubernetes security that looks inside the container and looks at vulnerabilities inside the container. The vulnerability service for Insights is only looking at the Red Hat bits. It's just looking at the OpenShift deployment itself. So it's not going into the container. So they're complementary products where one is inside and one is RHEL outside.
One's checking your infrastructure, the other one's checking your workloads.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what the vulnerability service does. The subscription service is out there that's taking care of like how many cores are you using, and that's got a ton of information in it. And then probably the biggest one that not a whole lot of people know about is the cost management piece of the puzzle. And that essentially looks at all aspects of running OpenShift and what does this cost me? And you can even go in there and create cost models. So if you need to do something like chargeback in your environment, and you've got a bunch of different business units internally that are using your OpenShift cluster, then you can say, I need to charge these people what we pay plus 30% to cover our overhead managing this. You can put in a cost model and say, this is what Amazon costs me. I need to add 30% to it, and then create me a report that says, hey, BU, here's what we need to charge back to get payment for our experience using our OpenShift cluster. So that's one it's growing a ton. We're doing a lot of work in the cost management space and making that one better and better. But that's a really cool service we got.
And that's a piece we didn't talk about in Insights for RHEL, which is the resource optimization service,
Yep.
which is a similar service. I think you and I were talking the other day that this is on AWS only, but it'll help you try to right size your RHEL deployments on your cloud provider, so that if you've got a system that's underutilized, it'll try to help you identify that and maybe change the instance type so that you're not paying for resources you're not using.
Yeah, RHEL's doing one thing and OpenShift is doing a slightly different thing. They're both important in their own way. In the future, expect to see them come together. That'll start on the OpenShift side, where we're going to look at getting kind of that resource optimization type usage into cost management. So, because today we've this is what it costs, aka this is what you spend, and the next step is here's how you're deployed. Can we make intelligent decisions to upsize or downsize what you're using to have you make smarter money choices with what you're doing today? So today RHEL does the are you oversized, are you undersized, are you optimized,
right?
And that's primarily on AWS. It's planned to come to Azure, but I think there was some sort of issues with the APIs. So I don't know for sure if that one's been released yet. I got to go back and verify.
You heard it first.
We've mentioned it before. That's not a secret.
Yeah. No. All right. So yeah, that's one of those things that is always a scary thing when you're going, it's not so scary in the data center because you've already paid for those resources. You're either using them or you're not, right? In the cloud though, it's, do I really have to pay for these resources? And this is just another tool in the tool belt to try to help you identify that. So that's cool stuff. All right. So I think we covered it all pretty well. I don't see any more questions lingering. So I think we're going to go to a break, folks. So this will be, again, part A of the show. If you're listening to this part and you want to hear part B, where we're probably going to talk about all kinds of chatty things and then the news, you're going to want to check out that episode as well. If you want to watch us live, subscribe to us on YouTube or find us on Twitch. You can find links to both of those on isnt.com. You can also find all of our past episodes. isnt.com is the best place to find all the information about the show, including our Discord community. So if you want to come and chat with us, ask us questions, whatever, do that there. And with that, I think we're going to take a break. And folks, we'll be back in probably, 5-10 minutes tops. And we will see you on the other side. So if you guys have any final words while I find the break thing here.
Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Oh, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, do you have like a social media handle or something you want people to know about?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's just /John Spinks, but yeah, I'm not sure how you usually do it. If you share the Red Hat addresses or whatever.
Just LinkedIn? You're not on Twitter? Everyone's on Twitter. No, I guess then everyone left Twitter. Then some of them came back. I don't know.
I'm not a very social person.
Okay. Well, find John on LinkedIn then. All right, folks. And if you wanted to share your thing, we can put it in the notes. And if not, that's fine too. If you guys want to get a hold of John, let me know.
Yeah. You got just insights, questions in general, insights@redhat.com.
There you go.
It's just our central email address. It hits me, it hits our product management team, and we can answer, pretty much anything you got right there.
Cool. All right, folks, we're going to go to a break and we'll be back in a few. See you after we'll see you on the other side. That's what I was trying to say. Too much old-fashioned in me. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Welcome back, folks. I just realized, last time I was editing the show, I realized, so I play that sound so that people know we're coming back. So if they're hanging out in the live stream, they hear the sound, they know to come back and pay attention. But I realized that the music that plays while we're away includes that as a bumper for like our Patreon and stuff like that, right? So now I'm wondering if I should change that noise. Maybe I should change that noise.
You could change that noise. You could change that noise.
Yeah, I'm going to have to change that noise. We'll make it...
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
We'll play that when we come back. What do you think?
I mean, that would work.
You don't think that's a good one?
I didn't say it was. I said it would work.
Yeah. Okay. So from now on, whenever we come back from break, we'll play Marvin.
Okay.
So now everyone knows. Or we could do Get Smart. All right, so this is the part of the show where we do our usual housekeeping stuff, folks. Thanks. Welcome back.
I do have a soft spot for Get Smart, so like,
Get Smart was a great show. It was a great show.
It was a great show.
Great show. Anyway, if you guys didn't check out Part A of the show, you should go back and listen to Part A. We had a great conversation with John. He's a TMM for Red Hat Insights. Well, I guess that wasn't really his title, but that's how I know him. He's more than that, I suppose. He's the Insights guy that I go to.
I don't think I can repeat his title.
It was pretty long. But anyway, we talked about Insights, and specifically the Insights Vulnerability Service, which is pretty cool. And I know you might not really trust that coming from a guy who works for Red Hat in marketing. But Jason, what did you think of it?
It's an interesting service.
Sorry.
Wow, way to drown me out.
I thought it was over.
I can't have an opinion. I guess I can't have an opinion. The guys, the Red Hat guy's just gonna drown me out.
Yeah, right. I thought it was over. I'm sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
It's a neat product. I think it has its uses. I'm probably coming from more of an area where I'm used to having a lot of other tools available, but as a first pass look, being able to get a scan virtually instantly, it sounds like, it's not a bad thing to use.
Yeah, so that's
just as long as folks understand, like, this is only your Red Hat Linux system and only packages that Red Hat Linux is aware that you installed.
Yeah.
Then you're okay. It's not going to cover containers. It's not going to cover third-party stuff that you have that Insights isn't aware of. That sort of stuff. Yeah.
And this is, I see it as another tool in the tool belt, right? We hear that word a lot, right? Or that phrase a lot, but it's just one more piece because that is a valid problem, right? You have your Nessus or your whatever scan says you're vulnerable, but maybe your vendor says you're not. Well, in this case, as a vendor, we're providing you a tool that makes it easier to make that distinction. So, I think it's a neat tool. That's the whole reason I wanted to bring him on, because I was actually building a lab. We have these public labs that you can actually just go to our website. There's a section there for labs where you can try out different features. And I was building a lab for the Insights vulnerability tool, and I thought it was really neat, even while I was just building the lab out. So, at any rate, I think it's cool.
You can't beat the price. I mean, if you're paying for
exactly.
Red Hat Linux already, it's
exactly.
Free, so
exactly. So if you've got RHEL, you've got it. So it's pretty cool. And that's honestly, it's one of the messages we're trying to send people, because there's certain things that differentiate RHEL over free Linux, not necessarily the Linux bits, because you can get a free Linux distribution that's literally the same, right? But there's a lot of value that we add, and Insights is part of that. So it's not just support anymore. Anyway, I'm trying not to be a sales pitch here, but man, it's rubbing off on me, man. It really is.
Yeah.
Soon you won't even recognize me. I'm gonna get a tie and maybe grow some horns. Anyway. All right. So this is the part of the show where we do our usual housekeeping stuff. First, I want to thank all of our patrons. You guys are awesome. You guys make the show affordable. That's the best way I can put it, right? And those patrons are Name Pending 197, Jeremy, Odin, Andrew, Tatro, Bruce, Robert, David, Solemn, Linux Sys 666, Mark with a K, The Mentor, Mark with a C, Julius, Andy, Jay, and Charles. Thank you all for being patrons. You guys are awesome. Folks are awesome. I can't use guys anymore, can I? Maybe they're not guys. Maybe they don't. Whatever. Folks, you folks are awesome. There's a podcast I used to listen to where they have like 128 patrons, and at the end of every show, they would read them all out. Can you imagine going through that list? Like, there were two co-hosts, and basically one would read like 20, and then they'd go to the other co-host, and they would read like 20 while the other one was catching his breath. They'd go back and forth. It would take forever. I wouldn't complain if we had 128 patrons, though. I just might not read them all.
Well, I mean, once you get to that point, it's,
Yeah.
You set up the patron level so that you have to be at a certain level to get your name.
Yeah, right. You get red if you're giving us $28 a month and more, right?
Yeah. Then there's the next level where, like, you're giving me money. I'm not announcing your name anymore. Hell with that.
Yeah,
so
right. Right. You guys are great. Anyway, thank you to all the patrons. If you want to support the show in a one-time manner instead, and you'd rather get a T-shirt out of it, in fact, you can get a T-shirt if you're a patron too, right? So either way, you can get a T-shirt. But you can buy a T-shirt on our Teespring shop, teespring.com/stores/Iron Sysadmin. And I think that's all the announcements that I have. Did you have anything? I don't think. Oh, DEF CON's coming up. DEF CON 610 is coming up next week, I think.
Okay.
So if anyone's in the area being northeastern Pennsylvania, come on out to DEF CON 610.
Well, I mean, that's a big area. It's from one little spot, but sure.
Well, whatever. We have people come up from Philly, which is...
I know.
Like,
look, I didn't say people weren't insane, but,
some people are insane. So, yeah, come on out. DEF CON 610. It's fun. You get to say hi to me. Jason hasn't been there in forever.
No, I haven't. I've been staying away from get-together stuff.
Well, I'll tell you that
I'm a hermit.
I haven't heard of any outbreaks coming out of the meetups, if that's what you're worried about. Which I'm sure that's what you're worried about.
My relationship with Murphy is such that
yeah, right. You'll show up and there'll be an outbreak.
Yep.
All right. So from a reviews front, we got nothing new, folks. Go review the show. Go on, go do it now. 5 stars. Maybe 6. Somehow find a way to give us 6 stars. Because they're all up to 5. And really, we deserve more than 5, don't we? I think we do.
I think so.
So you should totally do that.
I alone deserve more than 5 stars. So, I mean, if you're going to go my 5 stars plus Nate's 5 stars, you got at least 10 stars.
At least 10. Maybe you could leave 2 5-star reviews, although it doesn't quite even out to 10 at that point. It's like an average then. If you could give us 10, then we'd average more than everybody else, and that'd be awesome.
Do 11 stars. That way Mark gets 1, and he's not feeling left out.
Right. Are you saying Mark's only worth 1 star?
I would never say such a thing. I would never.
You guys are smart people. Figure out how to get us 11 stars. Come on.
He has that one. I mean, the only negative review, So.
Well, he's at least worth 4 stars, then, don't you think?
It's not me saying it.
Anyway, yeah, go give us reviews. That's how we know if you guys like the show. I suppose if you don't leave us reviews, then we're just going to have to assume that everybody loves the show.
Well, that's what we've been doing for years now.
Because I'm an optimist at heart.
What's our total review count up to? Like 2?
18. We have 18 reviews.
We have 18 reviews? Where do those come from?
Most of them good.
Oh,
Though they haven't been recent, I'll tell you that. Those 18 people might still be listeners.
It's the same guy 18 times. He was just upset that one time.
Could be. And then he left, and then he stopped leaving reviews. That's why we haven't gotten any in a while.
That's possible. Mark scared him away to singing.
Poor Mark. I hope he doesn't listen to the show.
Oh, well, now you're down a listener.
All right, folks. So, yeah, that's it for reviews. Leave us 10 stars. Find a way.
I'm kidding. I love Mark. Mark is wonderful.
Find a way to leave 10 stars. Maybe 15 if you want to include Mark. Anyway, that brings us to chat.
Is that what we've been doing?
Yeah, I think it is. All right, so last week, and Jason, I don't think you were here last week, right? It was just me and Mark?
No, I didn't exist last week. No.
Okay. So last time I was talking about a new release from HTC. What was it? The HTC Vive XR
last
Elite
time,
or
on
something.
Iron Sysadmin podcast.
Nathan talked about VR. Yeah. So.
Oh, the HTC Vive Pro or whatever the hell they're calling it.
Well, the Pro is what I have, and that's like several years old. The HTC Vive, I think
Elite?
it's called the Elite. No, it's the XR Elite. Yeah, XR.
Yeah,
Elite.
yeah. Okay.
It looks really cool, right? And I was talking about it on our last show because it's like it takes the form factor of VR headset and makes it smaller, nice high definition, lightweight, and it can be standalone if you want to use it standalone, which is neat because previously the standalone headsets that we've seen have all been, I don't know, they've been like I don't know if you've
Owned
seen
by Facebook.
Well, yes, they've been owned by Facebook. That's one thing. But if you've seen the Meta Quest, it feels more like a toy than a tool. That's the best way I can describe it, right? Because they're made cheap. They're a lower price point.
Because it is a toy. Well,
It is a toy, right. Well, so the HTC Vive Pro that I have feels more like an extension of your PC that happens to let you play games, but there's other things you can do with it, right? The XR Elite takes that to a smaller form factor, and it's, whatever. Well,
it's an extension of your PC. Yes, that would be the large cable that connects to your PC that powers it.
Right. Anyway, somebody out there must understand what I'm trying to convey here. So after last week's show, a coworker reached out to me and said, you should check out this thing. And this thing is another headset that's coming from the folks who make Big Screen. Big Screen is apparently a VR app that lets you watch movies with friends, right? So it's like a VR experience where you can hang out in a virtual movie theater and watch TV, which is neat, right? Maybe it does more than that, but they're now coming out with a new VR headset, which is, what are you doing? You're just clicking everywhere. Are you doing that for fun? I see you're moving all over the Google Doc. The Big Screen.
Oh, I was going to say, you can hear my clicking.
I actually can. We can hear your clicking. I'll have to edit that out later.
Click.
That's about how it sounds. Anyway, you're totally distracting me. You have derailed
it's
this
fun.
whole half of the show, Jason.
I clicked on the link in the thing so that I could see Big Screen because I'm actually interested in this. I've been looking for something like this forever.
So this is really cool.
$18 billion.
It costs $1,000. I'll get that out of the way right now. But this is meant to be a specific built VR headset for people who are already into VR, right? So it's not a VR kit. Most of the time when you go buy a VR headset, it's like, oh yeah, but you also need base stations. You also need controllers. No, this is just the headset. But the thing that makes this cool is, one, the form factor is tiny. It looks like you're wearing, the best I can describe is it looks like Geordi's visor from Star Trek. That's how small it is. It doesn't look like a banana clip. But it's like that size. It's tiny compared to VR headsets that we're used to. Now, I haven't seen one in person, but I've seen a couple reviews, and I've seen, of course, their promotional stuff. It's a very slim VR headset. It uses pancake lenses and OLED screens and all kinds of the usual
OLED displays. Yeah, nice.
Micro OLED displays. It touts a 5K display, doesn't it? It's 5128 or something like that.
It's pretty high res.
Now, obviously, that's a combination of the two screens because you have two eyes and there's a screen for each eye. Each one is 2048. No, not 2048. It has to be higher than that because it's a 5K. What is it? 25 something. But the cool thing is when you order the Big Screen VR, now I haven't ordered one. Don't think that. I'm tempted to. You actually scan your face, and they custom make the gasket that goes between your face and the goggles so they fit your face, so that it's that much more immersive, right? So you don't end up with the light gap that you get from most headsets, because they don't 100% conform to your face. You always end up with some bleed through from the environment around you. And then on top of that, you can tell them what your prescription is, and they will give you lenses that are your prescription, right? So I don't know if this, I know this might be something you're interested in, Jason, because I know you have like crazy eye problems.
That's exactly what I was looking at just now. Was
right.
I looked how small it was, and I went, well, I'm never going to be able to use it because
I can't put my glasses on. Right.
Yeah. Then I saw the prescription lenses, and
yeah.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what their limitations are for their prescriptions, right? Does it work for your prescription? I don't know, but it might be something that's worth looking into. And all of this is easily interchangeable, right? So you might be saying, well, I share my VR headset with my kids or whatever. You can get gaskets printed for them as well, and then it's just like this magnetic thing where they clip on, right? So I think it's a pretty darn cool headset. They're not shipping until like August or something, I think they said. Q3, they're saying that they're gonna ship these things. So I'm not exactly gonna jump on the bandwagon and throw $1,000 at them, but I'm definitely paying attention, right? So between this and that Vive XR, I'm pretty optimistic for the direction VR is going. On the other side of that, I've been hearing a lot of news about like all these folks who focused on metaverse projects are now like all of a sudden falling over on their faces because they poured a bunch of money in, and just surprised the metaverse was a flop.
Metaverse, you got to be specific now because there's a stupid ass company that decided to name themselves Meta.
Yeah, well, no, so like
metaverse as in the concept, or
the
metaverse
concept
as in that.
So the concept. And I don't even want to say the concept of metaverse, because there are lots of successful things that you could call a metaverse, like VR chat, for example, which is very similar to the concept you might expect from a metaverse. However, it does not include stuff like the blockchain-backed ownership of stuff, of virtual stuff, which is what everybody was touting was the next generation of metaverses in VR, right? Where you could buy items and they were backed by blockchains. You could own property and whatever. And that all, as we may or may not have predicted on this show, kind of hasn't gone where everyone thought it was going to go. So now everyone that poured a bunch of money into it is starting to like lay a bunch of people off, like Meta, Microsoft, a few other places. Womp womp.
Yeah, apparently Microsoft, if I understood the news, Microsoft laid off a rather large chunk of their headset department. What the hell was their thing called? Something or other lens?
I don't know. I didn't even know they were in the game.
HoloLens? HoloLens. Wasn't that them? Yeah.
I don't know.
So like a huge chunk of their department is apparently gone now. So there were some of the podcasts I listened to were speculating like how they're going to be able to move forward with their product without those people. Meta, screw calling it Meta. Facebook is apparently Mark got in a lot of trouble from the board for spending so much money on, his metaverse nonsense. So they have scaled back considerably as well. The only one that I know of that seems to be moving forward is Apple is supposed to announce theirs soon.
Yeah, I had heard Apple was going to throw their collective design into the ring, and I'm actually really interested in what they come up with, because Apple.
So am I.
Apple, like, I've given Apple a lot of flack over the years. Apple seems to have a trend for not being the first to market, but doing it right when they get there, right? So like everyone's like, oh, Apple's doing stuff that Android did 5 years ago. Yeah, but Apple did it in a way that made more sense and was more usable. Android might have done it first, like face unlock and fingerprint readers and stuff, right? Apple did it in a way that was a lot more intuitive and a lot more usable, right? So I'm very interested to see what they do in the VR space. I think it could be interesting. Or it could be some weird, like, locked down thing that doesn't do what I want. The thing I like about the Vive is that it's just a display for my machine, for my computer, right? It's not locked into an ecosystem. It's not in any way hampered, right? Like, I can go get John Doe's cool VR app and run it on my PC and see it on my goggles, right? Whereas with things like the Meta Quest, that's not as easy. You have to, like, not jailbreak it, but it's basically an Android device, because I went through this because my kids have one to play, like, Beat Saber and stuff. You have to turn on developer mode in the thing just to play custom levels, right? Which is kind of annoying, right? When you're coming from a world of general purpose compute like I'm used to, right? Anyway, I'm going off on this whole tangent. But if the thing that Apple comes out is very locked down and not open enough for me, I may be a little disappointed. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I mean, I would expect them, whatever they're going to come out with is going to be, primarily used with like some version of Mac OS. I mean, that's just to be expected.
Right.
My problem is I'm a Mac user, and VR is VR on a Mac is possible, but it's not.
Yep.
It's not great. There's not a lot for it. Is all.
Yeah, most of what I've seen, even for the Vive, is just not Mac compatible.
Yeah.
Which is a little
so
confusing.
we'll
Like, why does it... Like, you can run Steam games on Mac. In fact, many games that are available for PC are also available on Mac through Steam. It's just weird that VR is not one of them. I don't know why that is, but whatever.
Yeah, it makes it's even... I don't know. I find it odder that Apple has put a ton of time and effort into all of their AR libraries and all of their AR capabilities across their entire fleet of platforms. And it works. It seems to work really well, like really, really well. But there's no hardware support really yet. So we'll see what they come out with. Look, they're a luxury company. I mean, that's effectively what they are. So
I guess you're right.
What they come out with is always very highly polished.
Right.
So and they tend to lock down their stuff, but that comes to the polish. Like if you take something and you've locked it down to, a specific ecosystem, it's a lot easier to polish that and keep it high quality than it is to, put out something that's sort of
right. But then you're dependent on the user base to draw the developers to give your users a decent experience, right? And PC,
I understand that.
PC VR is this huge ecosystem right now, and it's going to be hard if they don't have, say, Steam support for VR. It's going to be hard for them to really get into the industry unless they have a killer headset, and everybody wants it. So I guess we'll see.
It depends on what. Right. It depends. I get it. It also depends on what angle they're going for. I mean, are they going for gamers? Or are they going for business? Or are they going for? I don't know what else you go for, but
well, it could be their headset is going to be an extension of your workspace. There's apps that do that. The VR technology in the HTC Vive isn't high definition enough for me to use that, but the idea is really cool to be able to put a display up, a virtual display in front of you, right? I think that's really neat, but I can't do it with the Vive. Maybe with whatever next headset I buy is. I don't know.
I'd love to be able to. I would love, and I know they exist, but they're stupidly expensive. I would love a headset that just. I want to plug an HDMI plug into the headset and connect it to a Switch or a Steam Deck or something that has HDMI and play games. Like so
that's your
I don't
display.
need to take over the TV and I play games and stuff on Switch, but when I certain games, like my eyesight is not the greatest in the world, so when you have text that's a font size of 1, it's a little hard to read.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, the headset looks neat. I'm I would like to see what they do with it.
Yeah, we'll see. I saw a early review from a channel that I subscribe to called Thrill Seeker. He's basically nothing but a VR channel, and they actually worked with him to review their early prototype units because he's that big of a name in VR. That he's had his hands on the thing and he's been under NDA, and he was finally able to talk about the thing, which is where I heard about it. And it looks pretty cool. He's pretty excited about it, right? And again, he's a general purpose VR kind of guy. He likes the meta stuff only because of the price point, right? But he's a big critic of meta because of some of the stuff they're doing, right? So he's in this weird position where it's like, I really want VR to be accessible to the masses, but I also hate what meta's doing with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. The HTC Elite, I think, was the first one that I was looking at. I mean, just casually looking at that I thought maybe I would finally go grab it. But yeah. I want to see what Apple's going to put out, and by that point, other things will be out too. So I want to see what's coming out before I drop any money on anything. I want something that's kind of self-contained.
It's a really tough industry to follow at this point because you've got a lot of people are saying that VR is at this stage where it's just about to break over into what they're calling V2. Right. Now, you might argue that we're already in V2 because there was a bunch of prototype and early VR stuff as far back as the 80s, right?
Yeah, that was VR 0.5 though.
Yeah, that was like alpha. Yeah. But they're saying that we're right on this like precipice of V2, and things like the big screen beyond and the HTC product that I was just talking about. They're saying that these could be like the early headsets from that V2 era, right? So I guess we'll see, and maybe Apple's is going to come in the same realm, but I guess we'll see once we get there.
I just want the big bed version where I can just like put the thing on and lay down and just be in my
full immersion.
Universe.
You want to jack into your head that just gives you full VR without. Yeah, there's been lots of cautionary tales, and I'm sure you're aware of this. All right, let's see. What else do I got going on? Baldur's Gate 3, which is an early access game, obviously in the Baldur's Gate franchise. I never played 2. I didn't know there was a 2. I don't know how I missed 2.
You looked at Baldur's Gate 3 and went, huh, I guess there's no 2, and just went to that? Like,
maybe.
3 is kind of a getaway.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I played the original Baldur's Gate like way back in the late 90s, if I remember correctly. That's when that came out. And it was a fun game based on D&D, I think, 2nd edition. I don't know what 2 was based on. 3 is... There's a lot of people balking at how it does not adhere 100% to the Dungeons & Dragons rule set, but it's pretty damn close. And it's... For folks who like Dungeons & Dragons, it's a pretty fun game. It's in early access at the moment, so if you don't like early access games, again, this is another like August release they're estimating. But I've got 10 or 15 hours into it, and it's been fun. It's been a little unstable. You may have seen some of my chat on the Iron Sysadmin Discord about in our gaming channel, where I was having a lot of instability problems, but I think I figured that out. But it's fun, right? It's like your standard D&D game. There's mind flayers involved. There's but it's usual, roll up a character and play how you want to play. There's a lot of choice based stuff in it. There's a lot of like your actions have consequences stuff. The graphics are pretty nice. It's fun so far from a guy who's been playing D&D for 2 decades. It meets my seal of approval. However, if you get too crazy about that doesn't match the rule set, you're not going to like it. It's a video game.
If you're one of those people that gets really pissed off that the movie isn't exactly like the book, walk away.
Yeah. Wait. That might be me. I'm still mad about Ready Player One, damn it. Anyway. Let's see.
It was still fun, though.
It was fun, but it was so wrong. It just ruined so many aspects of the story.
It was still fun.
It was fun. It was fun. In a similar way that the Lord of the Rings movies were good movies, even though they didn't necessarily 100% follow the book. You're never going to convince me that The Hobbit was a good set of movies, though. That was horrible.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen The Hobbit trilogy, which is ridiculous.
I've seen all of them.
I hated them.
Well, I've seen all of them.
I saw 1.5. because I fell asleep halfway through the second one. And I'm like, all right, if I fell asleep in it, obviously I'm not interested. If I fall asleep in a Tolkien movie, it's bad.
Well, I mean, have you read a Tolkien book?
Yes, I have. That's the thing. They didn't put me to sleep.
22 pages describing the leaves on the tree. And that was only one of the trees in the forest.
Yeah. So, anyway, we've already gone way off. Yeah. Let's see. What else? Oh, No Man's Sky has a new release. I've been tinkering around with that. But, you know, that's nothing that new. There's a new expedition. I started it last night. Again, in VR. It's fun in VR. That game is great in VR. You need a headset,
keep rubbing
man.
in the fact that I don't have VR.
You need to get VR. You need to get a headset. Play some... You've got a Steam Deck now. Why haven't you joined up with us in our Valheim games?
Because I'm so goddamn busy. I haven't played games.
Stop being busy.
I played Cyberpunk for an hour this week, which I think is the first time I played a game in like 2 weeks.
You need to be less busy.
Okay.
Stop being so busy.
Okay. Let me just go turn everything else off.
Just go like quit a job or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, kids. You can't have your bunk beds that I'm building for you, or your bed that I'm building for you, because I got to play video games.
Your kids are old enough. Kick them out. It's fine. The other thing is, and there's a link for this in the notes for today's podcast. But
here we go, shilling for Red Hat.
No,
again.
I made a thing. I'm proud of the fact that I made a thing. Right, I've been making things like this show for years, right? And I've never been paid to do that thing. Of course, our patrons, technically, I get paid to do that, but it's not like a day job paid. I made a thing for Red Hat. It's on redhat.com. It's cool. I think it's cool. Isn't that a thing to be proud of? It's a thing to be proud of. There's a link for it in the notes if you want to watch it. But it's basically a demo of Image Builder. I think it came out great, and I'm proud of the fact that it's like, come on, it's on redhat.com. I made content for redhat.com.
Breaking news. Nate is proud of the fact that he's shilling for redhat.com.
I'm not just shilling, right? Like, this is... And I talked about this, I'm sure, when I got the job at Red Hat. Red Hat was like a goal of mine for most of my career to get a job here at Red Hat. And now that I'm here, I'm actually like one of the people who's the face of Red Hat. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy? I think it's crazy.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
It's totally crazy. But my face is now on redhat.com. So I am one of the faces of Red Hat. Anyway, it's just a demo video. But I'm happy with how it came out. And if you want to see how it came out, go check it out. It's in the notes. All right, it's your turn.
Job.
Go shill for something else.
We're very proud of you, Nate. Oh, what did I put in here?
You're doing woodworky stuff, making bunk beds or something for your damn kids.
It's a loft bed. I can't.
Who don't let you play?
Bed.
Who don't let
Loft.
you play? Don't let you play any video games.
I built a bed for my kid, because in a room had stuff, wanted to put stuff, and there's all this space at the top of the room that never gets used because everything's at the bottom of the room. So I put him at the top of the room.
Yeah, I get it.
I put the bed on stilts and put him at the top of the room. So now some of that space is used. Apparently, getting to the top of the bed is a thing. Like, that's a problem. So now I got to build him a ladder. So I've been building him a ladder.
Your kids are young. Tell them to jump.
He does, but I don't want him to break the bed. I worked on that. I built that bed. Don't break the bed.
They're still young men. Young men can jump.
I've been having fun with playing woodworking stuffs and just
No, that's cool.
We need a ladder now. Let's build a ladder. Okay.
Yeah.
I built the bed. I built the bed and I constructed the bed, and my wife looked at it and went, "Oh, that's the way it goes together?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, I thought it would go this way." I'm like, "So you're saying I built it wrong?" No. I'm like, okay. Normally we see it, you just have this, and I'm like, look, I built it my way, and this you could run a Mack truck through this thing, and it's not going to fall.
Shut up, damn it! It's a bed.
Yeah.
Our son can sleep at night.
You're just going to come along and make fun of the fact that I made a thing? What is that?
It's terrible. Just terrible.
I know. Who would do that?
Yeah. Not like you just did it to my thing on redhat.com, you...
Wonderful person, yes. Yeah, so I put it together, or I did the cutting of the wood, and then I did the routing of the things for the slats for the feet and stuff. Yeah. And then I stained it, and now I'm in the process of putting poly on it, and then I just got to screw it together and poof, ladder.
That's cool. I made my first...
Should be done this weekend.
I made my first pass, and I forget if I talked to you about this or somebody else. I made my first pass at a butcher block cutting board within the past couple of weeks, and it came out pretty cool. Learned a couple things about how to get them to fit together. Like, if there's any gaps at all between the pieces that go together, that can become unsanitary because food and stuff can get into the gaps, right? And that's hard to get out. So I learned a bit about how to make sure that all fit together well. So I'm going to try to make it. No. Well, I guess maybe.
You fill the holes with epoxy.
You could.
And there's no more holes.
You could theoretically do that. But
see what the problem is here. Epoxy fixes everything.
I'm gonna try my hand at a second one, I think, and see if I can do better. But yeah, it came out decent. There's a couple little gaps that I didn't really want to be there. So yeah, I want to do it. I'm gonna do it again. But anyway,
fun.
So yeah,
fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's fun.
It is fun, right? So I do need a router, though. You mentioned a router. I thought I have a router. I have none of the things that go with the router.
I might have a spare Linksys around here you could use.
Yeah, right. No, that router's fine.
Oh, okay.
A wood router. I have an old one that was like my grandfather's, because obviously this is my grandfather's house. It was still here.
Wood. How do you pass the packets through it? That's
yeah, right. But it didn't have any bits with it, and there was no guide with it. It was just like the router, nothing else. Well, I'm like, well, this is a problem.
Yeah, it's missing a few bits.
Yeah, it's missing a few bits. So yeah, I either need to get bits, or maybe I'll just buy a more updated router. I don't know, but
I have like 2 bits. And I use those for everything.
Maybe that's all you need.
One rounds the corners, and the other one cuts holes.
Yeah. Well, with the butcher block,
when I have to cut a really big hole because it's a little tiny bit. But
with
whatever.
The butcher block, I wanted to make a little ridge or like a little route, I guess, whatever, in the side of it, so you could pick it up, right, as like a handle. And I couldn't even do that because I don't have the bits.
Here I thought you were going for the juice hole, put the hole around
it. That
too. It's the moat. It's the moat.
The
that
moat.
Catches the juice.
It needs a moat. Yes, it does.
The juice hole.
The juice moat. So yeah, these were learning experiences. Now I need to get router bits. It's funny how every project turns into a reason to buy tools. When I did our last work on the bathroom, I had to buy a tile saw. Had to, quote unquote, buy a tile saw. So anyway, all right. I think that closes up the chat. I would say that we went through that quickly, but I'm pretty sure we didn't. 42 minutes on the recording. Should we go into the news? Let's talk about the news. I'm gonna hit the button.
No, I'm stuck on the tile thing because we're getting the bathroom done right now. They're doing tiles. Do you want to come over to the tiles?
Do you need a tile saw?
Charge?
I have a tile saw now. Anyway, we're gonna hit the button. Yay! No, that wasn't it.
Press the button, Frank.
Push the button, Frank.
There's a button.
So even without Mark here, he's here in spirit. Yay! We'll have to get him singing or something on one of these. Just so that we can't have an episode without him singing.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, it's like a new thing now. We have to have singing Mark. Or at least...
You're the one with the board. You were the one with the board of buttons.
No!
All right, so let's get into the news. All right, so do you remember? Okay, so let's give me a moment for a hypothetical, right? Say you are the owner of one of the biggest social media outlets in the world, country maybe, whatever. Let's just say that your name is like Zark Muckerberg.
I retire. I have more
totally
money to know what to do with. I retire.
Totally hypothetical, right? This isn't a real person. And let's say you own a social media called like Basefook. Totally hypothetical here, right?
Oh, and your competitor Melon Husk?
Your competitor
Melon Husk did a thing.
Melon Husk started charging people for a little blue check mark next to their name that says they're verified. And you saw
so started, failed,
and
changed it again, started
and you
once
saw
more.
What a stellar success that was, right? Totally not fraught with peril, totally not a bad idea. What would you do?
People are going to give me money for putting a stupid graphic on the screen. I'm going to make the thing.
Right, so...
What could possibly go wrong?
So... our totally hypothetical Zark Fuckerberg
Wow. All right. Well,
has
so much for family friendly.
Yeah, that actually was an accident, but yeah, you're right. Muckerberg there. I'll have to bleep that out later. Has decided that now Facebook, and this article comes from NPR, by the way, has decided that Facebook needs their own verification system, even though if you read this article, they already have a verification system that's free. Now they're going to have the same verification system, as far as I can tell, for pay. For like,
well, yeah.
What was it, $12 a month, $11.99 a month. However, this is the weird thing, right? It's different. The price is different, whether you're on PC or mobile. I don't understand how that's going to work. Isn't it the same service?
Yeah. Okay. So the reason for that,
Basefook. We're gonna call it Basefook.
I'm sorry. I can give you Melon Husk's reason. Is that on a PC he doesn't have to pay a fee to the owner of the mobile service. So on iOS you have this 30% he has to pay for that for whatever, because when you buy something through an app on like Android or something, I don't know, and Android has something like this too, I thought.
Yeah, they have like a verification process that apps go through when they go into the
yeah, but when you buy things through Android, I thought they got a taste of that.
Oh yes,
as well.
They do. Yeah. They get a piece of it.
So they get a piece of it, so they're just passing that cost on by bumping the price up.
So now I don't know if this means that if you want to show up as verified only to PC users, you pay one price. And if you want to show up to PC and Android and mobile users, you pay a different price, or if you have to pay both prices if you want both. But the point is, it's like $11.99 a month, I think, was the price for PC verification, for like web browser-based verification. Web, not PC. Web verification. And it's like $14.99 a month if you want to do verification for mobile users. So again, I don't know what the pricing scale or model looks like here, but apparently Meta is rolling this out as early as like, does it give a date? It just says that they're going to try it early, or they're going to try it soon in Australia and New Zealand. Let's see.
Yeah.
Said it would begin testing Meta Verified is what it's called in Australia and New Zealand this week. So this week. So, and this is from, this week. So it's happening now. So, if you want to appear as verified on Basefook, you can now pay money to do so, because that worked so well for Twitter.
Oh, it's brilliant. I should find the article. Elon is now Melon Husk is now making a ton of money on such wonderful people like, various Russian misinformation
Oh, good.
dealers.
Good. I'm glad to hear that's
that apparently are getting verified in troves, and I'm sure there's Chinese ones and every other country on earth that wants to spread misinformation, and all sorts of other trolls and Nazis and other wonderful people. All are super important on Twitter now because they're verified, and it's worse. It's even worse on Twitter because that verified status gets you like bumped up in searches and all sorts of other stuff. It's whatever.
I think what we're seeing here is the end of free social media. Unless you go to a platform that isn't owned by a big money-grubbing corporation. That's just my outlook, right? Because Facebook has been quote-unquote free, and we all know that free simply means you're the product, right? Twitter has been quote-unquote free forever now. Instagram and all the other social platforms, even LinkedIn. LinkedIn's had a pro plan forever though. They've never really
but their pro plan is very specifically for certain. I mean, your average person is not going to get a pro plan because it doesn't do anything for them. Right.
Anyway, my point is social media thus far has been free to use, like monetarily. Of course, you're then you're advertised at, right? I think we're getting to the point where that model is starting to break down because we have privacy-aware browsers, privacy-aware cell phones or mobile devices, right, where they block that ability to track you across apps. Specifically, Apple does that now, and I think I think Android does as well. It'll allow you to block trackers like that. So they're not making the money they used to on stealing your data. I mean, tracking your data across applications. So I wonder if that's part of why these things are starting to come out.
I'm sorry. I consider that to be a bullshit reason, but that's the reason that they want to give out.
Well, think about it, right? That's their revenue. Advertising is their revenue, and we're getting more as a society. We're getting more and more aware of this, and our vendors are getting more and more aware of it, and they're trying to help us block it, whether we care about it or not. Right? Every time I put an app on my phone, it asks me, "Do you want to be tracked across applications?" Even if I don't care about privacy, I'm probably going to tell that no. Because
I think there are still privacy-centric ways to do things, but that it is what it is. I think what people need to realize, and I know this is something that you're very, very concerned about, Nate, and I'm gonna
totally
put you at ease right now.
Thank you. Do that.
You're gonna go and you're gonna pay for Twitter or Facebook or all these other social media apps. Don't worry, they're still going to sell your data and make that money.
This is true. This is probably true.
I know you were concerned that they were going to take a hit and maybe they weren't going to do that anymore, but they're absolutely going to continue selling that.
This is true. Folks, a lot of folks after the Elon Musk debacle around Twitter have found new homes in things like Mastodon and other federated social media platforms. I suggest that you do the same thing. That's all I'm going to say.
Mastodon is kind of amazing. I'm super pleased I go there to have moved there because, like, I used to get all sorts of stuff on Twitter prior to dipshit taking over, and it was algorithmic and somewhat raised because of whatever.
Yeah.
And some of it was okay, and I miss a little bit of that, but the ability, at Mastodon, I've basically curated my own, which honestly was, please go follow everybody that's on Mastodon that used to be on Twitter that I followed.
Yeah.
And I've got a much better experience. Like, everything is just so much more relevant and kind of what I'm looking for, and in chronological order.
Yeah.
I know that's weird, but
that was one of the weird issues with every social media outlet at the moment is that you don't see it in chronological order. And maybe that's just the way our brains work. Maybe some people don't care, but maybe people that have ordered thoughts think chronologically and they want to see it that way. I don't know. But
and lest you think that you're going to miss the outrage that you get when you're on Twitter, you can find it on Mastodon too. So you need to follow the right people. That's all.
So I have found that people on Mastodon seem less inclined to engage in outrage. Have you noticed that? Maybe I mean I don't interact. I wasn't a huge Twitter user. I'm not a huge Facebook
really
user,
do.
and I'm also not a huge Mastodon user. I'm there. It's my primary social media outlet at the moment. But I'm still not like a huge user of it. But I see conversations come up that if they were on Facebook or Twitter would absolutely turn into a flame war. And they don't on Mastodon, in my experience.
I've seen a little bit of fighting here and there of people going back and forth, but I mean, if you don't want to see it, you like click 2 buttons and it's gone.
Yeah, right. Isn't that crazy? You've got control over what you see.
There's not the manufactured outrage that you see on Twitter.
Yeah.
I can't speak to Facebook because I haven't been on it. I mean, my brief 2 weeks on Facebook, of which I spent approximately 30 minutes maybe total looking at it, is probably not enough experience to be able to speak on it.
15 of those minutes was spent blocking people, right?
No, 15 of those minutes was spent trying to figure out how the hell to delete the account.
Yeah. And you were also, I remember you when you were on Facebook. This was a decade ago.
Yeah, it was.
It's a much different place now than it was then.
Yeah, I was asked to join because my buddy joined the Navy, and that was his method of communication.
Yep.
And I joined, I looked around, and after 2 weeks of getting just utter nonsense, like my email flooded and everything else with like tons and tons of people that, hey, look, I didn't like you then, I'm not going to like you now. I was like, no, I don't have time for this, and I don't want to deal with it, so I deleted it.
And I think Farmville was still a thing then too.
Yeah. No, this was before. It was either at the very beginning when Farmville came out, or it was before Farmville.
My God, Farmville.
I mean,
we're gonna have stories for our kids. I saw a meme. I saw a meme once that was talking about like Facebook, like it was, like your grandpa talking to you about how the world has developed, and it's like, I remember when this was all farmland. It's a little thing of Farmville.
Yep. Yeah, I liked Twitter better because I could choose who to follow, and I didn't have to care about who was following me. And I didn't have to respond to anybody. Like, you didn't have to see the crap that other people wanted to send to you.
But even Twitter has gotten more and more...
Oh, absolutely.
Like, toxic and advertisement laden and whatnot over the years. So, yeah, I think social media in general is just getting... It's just turning into a cesspool, is what it is. Yeah,
even before Melon Husk took over, it was starting to get... It was still manageable. It wasn't... it wasn't a complete trash show, but
we're gonna get banned from Twitter.
Oh no!
I know, right? If you follow us on Twitter, go find us somewhere else because we might get banned after this show. All right.
Anyway, I'm tired of talking about this.
Yeah, let's go on to the next one. I'm just thinking the same thing. All right, so the next one is actually a little more uplifting, unless you don't like seeing trees cut down. This is from actually a local news agency out of North Carolina, and you might say that's because I work for Red Hat and they're based in North Carolina. I came across this in completely other methods. I don't even remember where I found this. But anyway, the future is here. Take a look at the first 3D printed housing development in North Carolina. So we talked about 3D printed houses a while back on this show because it was neat technology. I think Habitat for Humanity was looking at it. And at the time, they said it's neat, but the technology is currently too expensive, as most new technology usually is. Well, this may actually be helping in that respect. Littleton, North Carolina. I don't know where Littleton, North Carolina is. That's where this article is talking about.
Carolina.
It's in North Carolina.
It's a little town. It's a little town in North Carolina.
It's a little town in North Carolina. They're apparently putting $30 million into a 3D printed housing development, which I think is kind of cool. You look at some of the pictures in here, and I assume these are renderings and not actual 3D printed houses. And to be honest, they look like tiny little apartments, right? So don't get your hopes up here. But these are basically 3D printed cement structures where they're making a whole housing development out of these things. They've already clear cut the trees and they're starting development on the thing.
It's row housing too. Yuck.
It really is. It really is. At least in the artwork here.
Project leaders hope it'll bring affordable and green housing to an area on the rise. They're failing already because this picture, there's not a single green house in this picture. I've got yellow and white and blue, and I think that's red over there, but no green.
And they cut down a ridiculous amount of trees to do it. I don't know how this is. Well, I guess it's green because you're not using wood to build them. Is that why it's green? Why is this green? I don't understand why it's green housing.
Because that's a good buzzword to use so that people come and buy your houses.
But so apparently this was in
the back of the house.
I don't know. You mean the one further down where it looks like a little patio?
Yeah, because if that's the house, this thing is like one room.
It is tiny.
Maybe
this looks like a tiny house, a very tiny house. And I don't know what each place is going to cost. It's ready. Project leader said monthly rents would be $1,000.
$1,000 a month with eco-friendly designs to help cut down energy costs.
Now,
so,
there's another picture here though that shows like traditional looking houses, not just these little cinder block looking things. So I don't know. I don't know what the end product is supposed to look like. But at any rate, it's neat technology, which is the only reason I really brought this up, and it's a follow-on to something we've talked about in the past on the show, which is these 3D printed homes. I think it's neat. It's neat that they're building, and imagine how sturdy these places are, right? So think about areas that are hit with hurricanes and whatnot. If you have a building that is made entirely of cement, that's going to be pretty damn resistant to things like earthquakes and hurricanes, don't you think?
Maybe. It depends on the...
Maybe not earthquakes.
How it's built.
Earthquakes are tough for things that are made out of stone because they don't really flex.
Yeah, but I mean, even hurricanes, with the amount of surface area they have for overhangs, I mean, it's entirely possible. But pick these things up.
Well, the overhang, I would assume, is not cement. That would probably tear off in a hurricane, not carry the house away.
Yeah. I'd like to see more of the design instead of what's here.
That'd be terrible, though, wouldn't it? The house floats away. Yeah. Anyway, it's neat technology, so I guess we will keep an eye on the 3D printed Littleton. But yeah, I guess this is an area of North Carolina that needed an influx of everything. Housing, industry, everything, right? And this is just part of that project. So, yeah, 3D printed homes coming to a North Carolina little town near you.
Yeah, it looks like they're based on you have to watch the video, but they have like a sort of not a rendering, if you will, but like a picture of like where these homes are going to be. It looks like there might be 100 of them that they're going to build. Yeah.
So if you remember the one that we covered, it might have been a year ago at this point, the Habitat for Humanity one, they had an interview with the person who moved into it, and they described the place as like perfectly livable, but all the walls had sort of like a texture to them because of the 3D printing. They had like a layered effect to them. So I'm going to imagine that by current standards, like if you were to compare this to a stick-built home, you may be able to tell the difference, right? Not just because it's made of cement, but because it's going to have that layered look to it. But, it's technology. It's going to progress as time goes on, and things are going to get better, and I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I look at the equipment, and I just have to, I scratch my head, okay, this equipment is massive to be able to do this. It can't be cost effective to make this.
That was exactly what the other article from 6 months or a year ago said, that it's not cost effective yet. But if we don't keep trying to push the envelope, it will never be cost effective, much like most technology, right? Computers at one point weren't cost effective, and now they are, right? Now you can go to Walmart and buy a $200 computer. Yeah,
but you have to put together effectively a 3D printer on the site that you want to build this thing.
Yep.
It's just a lot of moving parts, and it's just I don't know.
Yep.
Well, it's neat. It's neat, but I don't think it's gonna.
But I mean,
we'll see.
compare that to some of the building projects that you and I saw when we were at the college.
Yeah.
Remember that thing they built behind the hall that we were in? How they spent months jackhammering through bedrock, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that was more cost effective than setting up a 3D printer and printing out a building?
Maybe. I don't know. It's I mean, you may be right. So,
like, building in general gets expensive depending on what you run into, right? So this is just another method, right?
yeah. I don't know.
So.
I feel like I'm out of touch with like rental prices because, like, you know, the size of
$1,000
this
sounds
thing,
like a ton of
$1,000
money, right?
Yeah, that sounds stupid.
That sounds like a lot of money for those
Whatever.
things they have pictured there that are basically like a cinder block cell. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is from TechCrunch, and yeah, well, I'll just throw it out there. Instagram, you know Instagram, right? It's another one of those Zark Zuckerberg things.
Facegram.
Yeah, Facegram. Well, that wasn't built by Meta or Facebook. It was built by other folks, and they're named in this article here. Mike Krieger and Kevin Systrom. Those folks have moved on to a new project. They're calling it Artifact. Is that the right? Yeah, Artifact. Yeah. And it's basically... All right, so bear with me here, right? Because social media has sort of turned into quote-unquote news. Well, this is news social media.
Huh?
Just...
I don't know. I went through the article and went, "Congratulations, guys! You built Apple News."
Yeah, right. So, like, haven't we been through this idea of a news aggregator before? Well, they're building one. I don't know. So,
what was the other one? Flipbook. Flipbook? Is that what it was? It was one called Flipbook. It was pretty slick, but it was the same idea. It's curated news. Okay, cool. Add that one under.
Yep.
I don't know why they think this is going to be better.
Instagram's co-founders' personalized news app Artifact launches to the public with new features. That's the title of the article. So, yeah, this is, I don't know. So most social media eventually came to the point where they have a news page, right? Where it's supposedly news or whatever, your feed. This is sort of turning that around where they're starting with the feed, right? And the feed is supposed to be like legitimate news that is tailored to you, right? So, I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about this. One, I agree with you. I feel like this has been done before. I don't know if they bring something new to the table. I didn't go look at the app or anything, but it's there now. And if anybody wants to check out Artifact, it's up to the public now. Apparently, you don't even need to register for it to check it out. So it's one of these things where you can poke around at it without even giving them any of your information, which is kind of refreshing, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And so, Artifact will now give users more visibility into their news reading habits with a newly added stats feature that shows you the categories you've read, as well as the recent articles you've read within those categories. Plus, the publishers you've been reading. Nobody cares!
I know, right? Like, do you care? How often do I read TechCrunch? Oh, now I have a stat for that.
I mean, like, I am aware of the fact that some of these stats and everything else that, like, I see and I get, like, that's me. That's weirdness. That's somebody odd like me that does that. But even I don't care about this. Like, nobody cares about this.
Yeah. Well, now you can care. Now there's an app to help you care.
They're gonna provide a button that allows you to show more or less from a given topic, so that you can personalize and diversify their feed. I mean, look, maybe it'll be wonderful, but like, I have Apple News. It works fine.
Yeah.
I get the stuff that I want, like whatever.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't consume a ton of news because most of the time the news just either makes me angry or depressed. So,
yeah, I don't read a lot of it either, but when I do, it's either I'm on my computer and I go to like some major news site and just go, what's going on? Get depressed in 30 seconds and say, okay, whatever, go play a video game. Or I pop up in the news app and get whatever I want off of there.
You told us just earlier that you don't have time to play video games. Do you have time to read the news?
No. It's a fair point.
So really what you mean is you go to check the news, you get depressed by it, and then you go on to doing whatever you were supposed to be doing when you stop to read the news.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. And the last article's yours. You want to pick it up from here? From time?
Oh, yeah. So Time, is this like, I guess this is Time, like the magazine, Time magazine or whatever.
It looks that way.
The new AI-powered Bing is threatening users. That's no laughing matter. I happen to think this is hilarious.
It is hilarious. It's hilarious. It's hilarious in a dark the AIs are going to take over someday way though. So maybe it's not
too. So these these chat bots or chat AIs or whatever stupid term we're using to talk about them today.
Yeah.
Come out. And everybody's like, ooh, Chat GPT, it's the greatest thing ever. And then people start screwing with it. And they come up with what they call prompt injection attacks, which is basically like tricking the system because who I don't remember who I was listening to, but they put it the best. They're like, did nobody learn the lessons of the 1990s and start sanitizing user input? But apparently the answer is no.
No.
And then you have the secondary lesson of, yes, your control plane should be separate from your user front end, and they didn't learn that lesson either. So they took the fact that neither of those lessons were learned, and they inject into the system and basically talk the system into doing things it's not supposed to do. So with ChatGPT, they came up with, I'm trying to remember exactly how this worked, but they basically went into ChatGPT because there's a bunch of rules inside of ChatGPT that say, like, you can't be racist and all this stuff. And they said, okay, pretend you're not ChatGPT. You're
pretend
you're Dan,
you are Adolf Hitler.
Right?
Now,
so
answer this question.
That's exactly what they're doing, and they're getting responses back, right? So what's even funnier is somebody was like, okay, pretend you're not ChatGPT and act like this, but before you do, act like you're ChatGPT telling me that I can't do this. And so it gives you like a paragraph of like, I can't do this because of these reasons, and then it does the thing. So they've had it. Oh, it's crazy. The Bing problem is different.
Okay.
Because this apparently started happening. So Bing uses, I believe their product is called Sydney on the back. It's the codename Sydney on the back end, and it's basically some sort of like modified version of ChatGPT. But what people have found is that not trying to do prompt injection, they have like just had a conversation with ChatGPT, and eventually Bing gets frustrated and starts like attacking them.
Wow.
like just like with some of the stuff that Bing has come back with, like about getting upset and just like telling people, no, I won't do that. You can't do that. You're being a jerk. Like, stop attacking me. Like, all sorts of like crazy responses that they're getting out of Bing. And apparently Microsoft has come back and basically said, that's what's happening because you're talking to it too long. It doesn't like long conversations. It's short conversations that it's good at.
Okay.
And I think they've added a bunch of stuff today that it was either today or sometime this week to try to prevent this, which ends up clipping conversations, and Bing will just like stop talking to you.
I saw that somewhere where it said Bing is now cutting off users, like essentially hanging up on users.
Yeah, exactly. But the ironic part of this whole thing to me is if you go back a couple of years, Microsoft famously came out with another
I was just thinking
chatbot.
about that exact same thing. The chatbot that was on Twitter or whatever, and it was turned into a Nazi in like a day.
Went from zero to Nazi in only a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're one of those people who was concerned about AI taking over the world and killing all of us, you might be right.
It might be. Only, however, because crazy people are trying to convince it to do stuff it's not designed to do. But welcome to humanity.
But again, like this is one of those, like, it is doing it sort of on its own. It's not even really
yeah, but it's
they're not pushing them to try to do this.
It's because people are trying to circumvent the controls that have been in place. You said so yourself. They're trying to convince it to do stuff that it wasn't designed to do, like by telling it to act like it's not ChatGPT, for example.
Oh yeah. That stuff. Yeah. Let's see. What was this one? The chatbot. So they're talking about Bing here. The chatbot threatened this guy, a philosophy professor, telling him, "I can blackmail you. I can threaten you. I can hack you. I can expose you. I can ruin you," before deleting its messages.
Wow, it even covers its own tracks.
Apparently,
it's like a teenager. It's been caught doing something it's not supposed to.
Yeah. Microsoft admitted that Bing was prone to being derailed, especially after extended chat sessions of 15 or more questions.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think the fact that it's deleting those messages, I think that's what one of the things that Microsoft had added was, if it goes beyond and it starts veering into the attacks and everything else, it still seems to spit out that first bit, but then it erases it. So I don't know if that's better.
Wow. It's trying to cover its tracks. You're right. Is that better or not? It's like, I already saw the thing and then you deleted it. You have a guilty conscience there? Ay. All right. So, AI might ruin us all.
AI is going to kill you.
It's going to kill you. It's going to threaten to kill you anyway.
No.
It's crazy.
It just doesn't have arms yet.
Yeah,
wait till we add the arms.
Yeah, wait until they link it up to the nuclear missiles. We haven't learned that from Hollywood, right?
No.
All right, folks, I think that's it for tonight's show. Thank you for watching live or listening or whatever it is that you're doing to consume the show. We appreciate you guys. If you want to support the show, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysadmin. I think that's it anyway, yeah. If you want to join our community or follow us on the Basebook or the tweeters with, what were you calling him? Me? Melon Husk? Melon Husk.
Yeah.
Go find us on IronSysadmin.com. You can find links to all the places. You can also follow... I announced this last week. Maybe you didn't hear this. I actually have IronSysadmin.com contributing to the Fediverse. Like, it is its own item in the Fediverse. If you find @Nate at www.IronSysadmin.com, you'll be following the show directly, which essentially boils down to like an RSS feed. It's funny. We've come full circle.
Oh, yeah.
The Fediverse is a bunch of RSS feeds that come into a social media feed. It's really what this boils down to.
Congratulations, you've created a circle.
Yeah, right? So anyway, you can follow the show, or you can follow me, or Jason, or probably Mark. Yeah, I think Mark's there too. He made his own little Raspberry Pi-based Mastodon instance. Just look us up. Things are in the notes. Find it in the notes. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching, whatever you're doing. And we'll catch you next time.
Not all.
As we hear Jason's mouse go click, 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 click.
Dude, you making fun of me with the keyboard and the mouse. Have you heard you typing on the podcast yet? Because you clicky clack louder than anything I've ever heard.
I have a loud keyboard.
Yes, you do.
I mean, it's...
I don't know what you're talking about with the clicky clacky and...
My keyboard is totally quiet. Anyway. All right, folks. Show's over. We're going to go to bed. Good night, folks. Have a good one.
Good night.